Welcome back to College 101. Today we are talking about roommates and how to be a good roommate. Now, I'm sure all of you think that you would be just a great roommate, right? I mean, you don't have any obnoxious habits, you don't do anything weird, you're just a regular person, right? Well, college smashes people from all different backgrounds, all different personalities into these little tiny dorm rooms, right? So, I'm going to go over some of the most important things to do to be respectful of each other and to really just make it the best experience for everybody. So, if you're living on campus as a freshman, and in my experience, they matched your roommates with you, and they even had this silly little survey you filled out. It was something like, I don't know, 6 questions, and it asked you the most random questions like, how messy of a person are you? Are you a night owl or a morning person? What kind of music you like to listen to, as if that's going to determine whether or not you like your roommate. My advice with this is always just go to extremes, because if you're in the middle, everyone's going to kind of be there, right? And so if you think, oh, I stay up until like midnight or 1 most nights, just say you're a night owl, because then you're going to be with other night owls. You're not going to end up with someone who thinks they're a night owl because they sometimes stay up until 10 o'clock. On the other hand, if you wake up at like 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, go ahead and just say you're an early bird, because otherwise you're going to with someone who wakes up at like before noon and they're like, wow, good for me, I'm a morning person. So if you go to extremes, hopefully you'll end up with people who are more like you and you're less likely to be in a muddled middle. However, hopefully you just might not even have to worry about this at all. The next thing that you can do to try and mitigate some of these roommate struggles is try and get in contact with your roommates earlier rather than later. When I was at BYU, the way it worked was the dorms just opened up and you went and you picked a bed. You didn't fill out any of these surveys or anything. And so I knew absolutely zero about my roommates. So what I did is about 3 to 6 months beforehand, depending on how long before, just get in touch with them. Figure out, hey, what are you bringing to the dorm? Where are you from? What do you like to do? What's your major? Get to know them a little bit beforehand, especially for logistical things, and especially if you're going to be in an apartment style dorm where you're going to have a kitchen. It's important to coordinate what you're bringing. Otherwise, you might end up with 3 full sets of pans and no toaster. Making sure that you're going to mesh with each other, making sure you're going to have enough stuff, and just kind of figuring out what you can connect on, right? Sure, your first time meeting them is still going to be a little awkward, a little nervous probably, but if you know about them, that's great. If you're going to a local college, maybe you can even meet up with them beforehand, go somewhere and do something, grab some food, or whatever it might be. I think that's a really great option, because then you don't have all the stress of moving in, orientation, your new classes, and all that, along with living with these strangers. Moving in with them, don't get me wrong, is still going to be a big shift from whatever you learn about them over the summer before, but it can help mitigate some of those potential points of contention before you if you know about them beforehand when you're coming from an outside level headed perspective. I do want to go over just some general rules for how to be a good roommate that I think are pretty simple and self explanatory, but everyone's going to do them a little differently. And the main number one rule is to respect public spaces. And now this is where it's fuzzy. Everybody thinks that a public space is different. So in my mind, the public spaces you need to respect are the bathroom, the kitchen table, the dishes in the kitchen, the counters in the kitchen, all of the kitchen, the living room, and if you're in a shared bedroom. So most dorms, in my experience, have sort of a living area, they have a kitchen area if it's an apartment style, and then they have bedrooms. Or if you're in like a purely dorm style, it might be just a room with an attached bathroom. In all these cases, respect the public space, and what I mean by that is if you're not the only one that's using it, then make sure you try your best to keep it clean. It doesn't have to be spotless, but don't leave your mess everywhere. And if it's something where you're going to need it for an extended period of time, like let's say if it's a kitchen or if you're having friends over to watch a movie, let the other person know. Because even if they don't have conflicting plans, they're also trying to watch a movie in your dorm at the same time. It's polite to let them know. What if they've got a test to study for the day before? Doesn't mean that you can't have your friends over, but it does mean they can plan to go somewhere else to study. Most issues between people are about communication. So the more you communicate about what you're going to do, where you're going to do it, how many people are going to be there, the less conflicts you're going to have. Sure, maybe your roommate might say, hey, you have a lot of people over all the time. Can you tone that back a bit? but you're not going to have them blow up at you for surprising them all the time. Another thing, a big point of contention, and maybe this was just one of my personal pet peeves, so that's why I'm going to be sort of harsh on it, is in the kitchen, if you have a kitchen, uh, clean your dishes right away, rinse them at least, just because no one wants to see a bunch of dirty dishes there if they're having someone come over. If you use all the dishes and they're dirty, then what else are you supposed to eat on? And it might all be your roommate's fault. If you're going to cook, clean up your messes, wipe down the counters, clean up the dishes afterwards. That way, if someone else wants to cook, they can. You've all got limited shared resources, so really just think of the other people. Think how mad you would be if you wanted to use something and it wasn't there. Next thing, same thing. So, like, let's say with fridge space, if you've got either a mini fridge in a dorm or a full-fledged fridge in a kitchen, make sure that you guys set up a system for where you're going to keep your food, how you're going to know whose food is whose, what you're okay with sharing. Some roommates might be okay with, hey, we'll all share the milk or whatever, right? We can all just use it and pick up some and we'll take turns. Other roommates might say, no, we are not sharing. And so this is my half gallon of milk and this is your half gallon of milk and we don't mix them up. And you got to figure out a system for that. So plan for that. Talk to them about how they want to do it. For example, my sister, when she was at college, she liked to cook a lot. And so she would actually cook for her roommates once or twice a week if they helped buy some of the groceries. There's all sorts of deals you can work out. You just want to make sure you set the right expectations and that you're conscientious of everybody else in your planning. Same thing with the cleanup. In my first dorm at OU, then we were in a dorm, so we didn't have like a full-blown kitchen or anything. And the trash, we had to take it out to a trash chute just in our hallway. And so we tried to be pretty even about it. I think we had a trash can in both rooms, if I remember right. And so it wasn't a hard thing to just take it with you on your way to class or whatever. But also, it shouldn't be a hard thing to say, hey, do you mind taking the trash out? And they probably know if they haven't done it in a while. Or you would know if you haven't done it in a while. So just be friendly about it and just do your part. There are also sometimes apartment or dorm cleaning checks. At Oklahoma, we only had the cleaning check when we were leaving the dorm at the end of the year. At BYU, we had cleaning checks every single month. This just depends on your school's policies, especially on campus versus off campus. But if you have a cleaning check, make sure you do your part. Make sure you coordinate who can be there for the cleaning check, when you're going to have your stuff done. That way, no one else is getting in trouble for things that you didn't do. In the end, you're living in close quarters with these people, and you don't necessarily have to be their best friend, but you should be respectful. In my time, I had a lot of roommates. At college, I didn't have quite so many. I had 3 roommates at OU, I had 4 different roommates at BYU, and then I lived with my wife my last year. But if you throw in my mission experience, I had 17 different roommates over the course of 2 years. And those 17 roommates, not only did I live with them, I spent 24 hours a day with them. But that meant I got to know a lot of people. I had to spend a lot of time with them. I had to get along with them. And so another great tip for you is just be willing to talk to anybody about anything, right? For me in high school, I was a pretty big nerd, I'll admit. I pretty much was in AP classes. I was on the robotics team. I probably only knew maybe 10% of my graduating class because it was just the people that were in my classes, and that was about it. And I hardly knew anybody from other grades because my extracurriculars weren't huge and they weren't multi-grade normally. And so then I went on my mission, and I had several mission companions who I worked with who were homeschooled. I had several who were athletes. I had several who were musicians. I had several people who were from Utah. I had several people from the East Coast, from the West Coast, from everywhere. And so learning to talk about what they want to talk about really made it go smoother, especially when you're spending all day together. I am going to make another video expounding on this a little more, but when I was at University of Oklahoma, I actually roomed with some of my friends from high school. That was really great because we knew each other, and more importantly, they had similar interests to me, or at least were willing to talk about what I was willing to talk about. Not all 4 of us had the exact same hobbies, but they were willing to ask me, hey, how was your day? Hey, how'd your test go? Did you get that homework assignment done you were staying up late with? How was going home this weekend? Just being friendly, right? We all know how to be friends. We all have friends. So really, college is just about learning how to make friends with people who are more different from you than maybe ever before. If you get along with your roommates, and if you really like them, you kind of have built-in friends, right? They're always going to be there if you say, hey, I want to go do something. Even if you don't get along that well, it's much better to live with people you're on good terms with than avoid talking to them for the rest of the semester or the year. So again, it all boils down to respect the public spaces, respect other people's stuff, and set up expectations and systems for how you're going to live together, because it's hard on everybody. Everybody's new to it. Nobody knows each other. So just keep that in mind and keep a level head when conflicts arise. Thanks for watching this episode of College 101 here on the College Guide. We'll see you next time.